Welcome to InsideUSF, the podcast. From University Communications and Marketing, I'm Tom Wolfe. USF enters the new academic year with a new leader in the College of Engineering, and joining me is the Dean, Levi Thompson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You most recently served as Dean of the College of Engineering at the University of Delaware. You were a faculty member at the University of Michigan, both your alma maters, right?
That's right.
What inspired you to pursue a career in engineering, education, and leadership?
Well, I would trace it back to my parents who instilled in me the value of education, the value of learning, and in fact, teaching. And so part of that was inspired by them living through me in some regards. They weren't able to achieve at the levels I have. Not so much because they're not capable or were not capable, but really the circumstances that they were in at the time.
Were you the first in your family to go to college?
Yes. Neither of my parents graduated from high school. Obviously, they didn't go to college, didn't go to graduate school, but had the aptitude, I'm sure. You know, when I sit down, they're both gone now, but when I used to sit down and talk to them, you could tell that they really had the aptitude. In fact, I would tell you that they were both much smarter than I am. I'm fortunate to have a little bit of their talent. And so it was really that inspiration that drove me to continue going to school. I have a love of learning and teaching. You know, that came with time. Teaching is an incredibly important part of me. It's in my DNA, I would say. And one consequence is that I've been in academia essentially all of my career. I love it. I think this is where I was meant to be from the beginning. Other than playing basketball, I tried that a little while and had some success. But I really enjoy being a professor, a teacher, a mentor, an administrator now. Those are really important things for me. And there were a lot of people along the way that helped me galvanize sort of my thinking around what I want to do.
What led you to USF in this college?
I mean, it starts with people. You know, when I looked at the college, looked at the university, the people that I interacted with, I really could envision myself being around them, working with them, collaborating. And this is across the entire university, not just within our college. So it started with people. The next thing, at least for me, is the aspirations of the institution. You think about, well, where are you trying to go? If you're not going someplace that I think is of value and impact, then I'm probably not going along with it. Not to say it's not a great place to go, but I have to see myself contributing in some way to that vision and aspiration. And then resources. You know, all of this requires, and a lot of times we focus on financial resources, which are incredibly important, but it's the people as well. You know, if you have the right people, I'm a sports fan. I've played sports essentially all of my life, mostly team sports. And those of us who play team sports recognize that it's very difficult for an individual to win alone. And so you really need to have a team. And I see that in our college. I see it across the university. And I'm really excited to be part of that team.
What have you been doing to get acclimated to USF, to Tampa?
Meeting people, just extending myself out into the various communities. I haven't spent a lot of time in Florida, to be honest, other than going to Disneyland, Disney World, and some of the other parks here. So I hadn't spent a whole lot of time here, but the time that I have spent has been really quite enjoyable. Meeting people not only at the University of South Florida, but in this community extending all the way down to Naples, for example. We have friends that now live in the Naples area. We ended up buying a house in Sarasota, and I love that area as well. I think you would consider that part of the Tampa Bay region.
Well, we certainly do.
Good
campus
good.
there.
Yeah, well, as as a resident of Sarasota, I certainly think of it as being part of Tampa Bay. It's just a wonderful community. And then the University of South Florida, again, thinking about where they want to go. You know, this is a relatively new AAU institution.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what that means and the great expectations that come along with that. I want to be part of it. I think there is a tremendous amount of momentum that has been garnered over the years. And, you know, I was talking to a couple people earlier today about where we would like to see our college go. This college, because of the people that are here and the momentum that it already has, it's going to be successful. The question is, what do we want that to really look like in the future? Is it going to be just what we kind of get, or are we going to drive it towards a true excellence? And that's what I want to be a part of. And I think as part of some of the plans that we have, our strategic planning process, that's going to help a lot in getting our community to rally around a vision of the College of Engineering truly being one of the best, certainly in the state of Florida, but I'm looking nationally and internationally. We want to be one of the best internationally.
That's a great segue to my next question. How do you approach building trust and alignment with key stakeholders, faculty, students, industry partners, alumni?
Yeah, trust, like respect, is earned. And so you have to work at it. You know, I can't just walk in. I mean, you'll give me some credibility as I walk in the door based on what my CV or my record looks like. But trust really is earned. And how do you earn that? Well, I think it starts with being of high integrity. You know, these are the things that I look for. Integrity in the people that I interact with, the companies that we interact with, entities that we interact with. You have to be, integrity includes being honest about what you're doing, intentional. And so I think we're going to work to gain trust by having people see the integrity of the institution and the people. I also know that transparency is important. You know, we want you to understand what we're trying to do and how we're going to do it. Now, you may not agree with it, but at least you'll understand it. And I think that's an important part of gaining people's trust, showing them as you move along what your progress has been, what your failures have been as well. You know, failure is it's frankly an important part of that growing. You know, if we were perfect, of course, we'd never have any failures. But if we don't try, then we won't fail. So I'm comfortable with that. I want us to be comfortable with that as well. And
well, I think that also we're very fond, and for good reason, of talking about being bold.
Yes.
I think being bold can mean taking some chances, and those chances won't always pan out.
That's right. But people have to trust that you're really trying to make sure, you know, you can talk about being bold. That's easy. Being bold, doing the things that are necessary.
Yeah.
That's much more difficult. And that's an everyday job. That is not something that you do casually, at least for me. I just don't, the trust factor, it's important that you appreciate that I'm in. You know, I'm all in. I'm going to do everything that I can within reason to make sure that we are bold, that we are transformative, all of those things. If, as a leader in the college and at the university, if we're not demonstrating that, then I think it's hard for people to follow. You know, it's I've been reading about followership. You know, we know about, or we hear a lot about leadership. Followership is also important. What do followers, which are an important part of the equation, what are they looking for? And so I've been thinking a lot about that as well.
Interesting. What role do you see interdisciplinary collaboration playing in the future of engineering education? And how do you plan to strengthen those ties? For example, the new Bellini College.
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody told me, and I absolutely believe this, that you can't alone hire your way out of some of the most challenging problems. You just literally can't. I can't. I mean, either a consequence of resource limitations or space limitations, whatever it might be. You simply can't hire yourself out of some of those and into some of the opportunities that we see in front of us. So what's the other strategy? Collaborate. Working with others who have strengths in areas that you're not as strong. I won't say we're weak, but we're not as strong. So those collaborations become incredibly important in trying to deliver on the promise. I'm also reminded of a proverb, and I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but there's a proverb: if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And I absolutely believe that. And our intention is to go far. We want to go fast as well, but so we'll have some activities that are more individual or smaller groups, but we certainly want to go far. And you mentioned the Bellini College. I don't want to leave them out. So AI and cybersecurity, all of those are important things that enable some of the things that we do as a College of Engineering. So that collaboration is going to be incredibly
It seems pretty obvious.
important. It's not only obvious, it's necessary. I mean, if we're going to be that truly exceptional college that we want to be, we've got to have support from Bellini. I mean, to be honest with you, our foundational courses come from arts and sciences. We've got to have very strong collaboration with them that allows both our college and their college to benefit. The outside community, we are engaged in doing real-world work. And how do you figure that out? Well, talking to the real world. And our students, interestingly, understand that. They will challenge you. Well, how did you find out that this is something we need to learn? Okay, well, we've been talking to the community, talking to the companies that you'll go to work for. And I think that adds some credibility to the arguments.
Let me stick with that theme for a second. Experiential learning. It's often a differentiator.
It is.
For many of our programs, and certainly in your college. What innovative approaches are you considering in terms of internships or co-ops to benefit the students?
So for me, I'd like to see every part of what we do involve some real-world emphasis, where you have to put your hands on things. You have to actually build something. And it could be, I'm a chemical engineer, so we build molecules, and that's not, a lot of people think of mechanical engineering, you build some structure that you can actually hold. You can hold molecules in principle, and you can build them as well. And so when I think about real world and experiential learning, it's showing them how things that we may have taught you from a book come to life, and that's the transformational piece of it. And no offense to our colleagues that do things just to create new knowledge. We're doing things that will ultimately have impact on the way we live, the quality of life, the protection of our planet, the things that will really make a difference. And I think experiential learning, I would love to see experiential learning a part of those foundational courses, which doesn't happen very frequently in at least this country. In other countries, you see a little bit more. But if we could, for example, integrate a little more experiential learning in the mathematical training that our students get, in the science training that our students get, in the even the humanities and social sciences. How do we sort of integrate that in, helping them to see how the work that they're doing in that classroom turns into real world solutions and creating opportunities. So in principle, if we could have every class have an element of experiential learning, I think that would be tremendous. And there are a couple schools that do that. I won't mention their names, but they do it and do it well. And I think their students and their faculty and staff has benefited, and the community, in fact, has benefited as a consequence.
Certainly, the more that the college is able to offer those opportunities, the more you're enhancing their career potential as well.
And satisfaction.
Yes.
So we talk to recruiters a lot, and what many will tell you is that, well, your students are technically very sound. They can tell you things out of the book, but some do not translate that into real solutions that are impactful on the job. And we have aspired, and this is from my prior position, we aspired to be producers of career-ready engineers. When I say career-ready, they have the training, the technical training, those durable skills, whatever you want to call them. Some used to call them soft skills, but the reality is they're necessities today, communicating.
But, Levi, doesn't that also go back to what you were saying earlier about team sports and some of the skills you learn doing that?
Absolutely.
Many of us, like you, played team sports for a long time. And it maybe seems a little trite, but I think it's very true. It's not just the working together, it's also listening. It's how you communicate.
Exactly. It is. And, when I reflect on just my own involvement with teams, with administrations, the most successful interactions have been ones where I felt comfortable communicating. I felt comfortable sharing my thoughts. Just my nature is I want to win. And there are some times when my formula was not the right formula. And I will admit afterwards, begrudgingly, but I'll admit afterwards that maybe it wasn't. But we want to win. And winning is, we're not going to do it at all cost, but we will certainly aspire to be winners, to be the best. I have never been comfortable associating with any entity that says, well, I'm okay being just in the running, or I'm okay being even second. I don't want to be second. I know somebody has to be second, but our goal is to be the very best, and that's what we'll aspire to do.
Well, USF has a long history of being ambitious.
Yes.
What strategies do you consider as the most effective in recruiting, retaining, and graduating high-performing students?
So, for a student, if I'm a student, I have to see myself being successful at that institution. And success is a personal thing. We can't define for every single student what success looks like. So we have to be intentional, asking them, well, what is it you're looking for? The other thing I'll tell you is that today the cost of higher education is so high that there has to be a return on that investment. And what does that look like? A lot of people think about it as financial. I talk to my two daughters about what a successful life might look like. Your career is obviously part of that, but what do you want your life to be like? And we want to be the catalyst or facilitator for that, that college education and even graduate education. We want to be an important part of that. So I think if you talk about what this degree might help you do in terms of fulfilling those lifelong goals, that to me is where I'd like to see us focus. And it's, a lot of people will boil it down to how much it costs. We know how much it costs to go to college. We can tell you how much you'll make when you graduate. Those are important things because you want to buy a house, you want to do that. But I think more importantly, you want to have, some will want to have a family. How do you support and grow a family? How do you ensure that you can take care of yourself when you get a little older? How do you just have a great life and be able to travel and do things like that? Let's connect it with that versus just saying you're going to make a lot of money. And you will make a lot of money in engineering, fortunately. So, that's an easy sell.
You mentioned AAU a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly our research enterprise was the critical factor in that invitation to join that prestigious association. What thoughts do you have about expanding research opportunities in the college for faculty and students?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I would say is build on your foundation, what you're really good at. And I'm not talking about what you say you're good at, what you really are good at. And you can tell based on citations and, where your reputation is built. So you build on that. But that just kind of gets you started. The thing that excites me most is addressing those great challenges that we face globally and maybe exploiting some of the opportunities that are available. How do we position ourselves to do impactful work in those areas? We started with collaboration. Most of the easy things have already been done. You've heard that many, many times before. The more challenging things are multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. They're going to require collaboration. Collaborations for me mean that you have to establish centers of excellence. One of the things that we did at focus areas at Delaware was creating those centers, getting the right people together around the right kinds of ideas. It was tremendously successful. It helped not only build our core capabilities, but from a financial perspective, we were able to double our research expenditures, which was just an incredible comment on how successful the people in our college, and that's the faculty. Often we point to faculty for that, but the staff and students are tremendous contributors. In fact, enabling contributors. Without faculty, without the students, and without the staff, none of that. An idea. I don't know too many faculty that are going into the lab doing the kind of work that's necessary to make that impact. So we need all of those pieces to make a successful venture. And here, it's interesting because of, I guess, the great desire to be great and, this recent designation as an AAU school, people want to live up to that. They want, I was going to say desperately. I don't know if it's a desperate quest, but my sense is that people really would like to be that shining beacon here
It's
in not only the state.
Tremendous source of pride.
It's pride, but it's also, it's mostly pride. But there's some people that, like I said, just want to be the best, and you're proud of that, but it just is in your DNA. I think that's part of the DNA.
Okay, you got into AAU.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stagnate.
Oh, no. I don't think there's a, again, you can stay a part of the AAU. I mean, I'm sure there's some threshold set of metrics that are considered. I'm talking about being the very best, competing with the very best. And I shouldn't say this. I'm new. I've only been here a week. I would like to see us be the very best that we can, regardless of being an AAU institution, or any other organization that we belong to. If we can truly be the very best, if we can, if we're the best in the state of Florida, best college of engineering, or best university in the state of Florida, almost by definition, we'll be one of the best in the country. So just working our way, again, using a sports analogy, we're going to do the state, the regional, national, international, win at all of those levels. And it is a tremendous institution, but it could be so unique.
I think that it's probably safe to say, yes, we always want more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the nature of this institution.
It is, but, being strategic about it.
Of course.
It's more and more. You can be bigger, have more buildings, have more of this, have more of that. And there's some institutions like that. Our goal is to have that tremendous impact. And so that's what at least our college will.
That's what I was going to say. It goes back to something you mentioned a moment ago about solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
I've read that an area of interest for you is organizational change. Tell me about that.
So my experience as an administrator, and maybe even before then, was that sometimes we're not ready for change. We might say we want to do this, that, or the other. If you're not ready, then it probably is not going to happen. And so as I just sample, and I'm, again, new, I've spent a reasonable amount of time with people here. I think we do have to change. We have to change our thinking. I mean, as an example, we were at an event and somebody talked about another university, almost as if they might be a little better. I had a visceral response to that. It caught me kind of off guard. And I think culturally, we've got to think of ourselves as aspiring to be the very best. We're going to do everything reasonable to be the best college of engineering, best university, again, in the state, then nationally and internationally. And that's going to require a different way of thinking about things. Collaboration requires a certain type of culture. You have to be comfortable trusting other people, or at least giving them an opportunity to be trusted. Working closely, communicating. No organization is perfect, so we all have to improve in some regards. And I think we just have to work on it. And it sounds strange for engineers to talk that way, but I can tell you that when you get the culture right, you have a much better chance of being highly successful.
Let's switch from the professional to the personal. Tell me about your family. You said you just bought a house in Sarasota.
Yeah. So my wife is an entrepreneur. She's actually trained as an artist and then got her MBA. And we started a company together that we ultimately sold, developing materials for batteries. In fact, some of those materials are still being used, or the compositions are being used.
What is your background, right? Energy storage?
Yeah. So my background, or?
Yeah, no, yours.
So I'm a chemical engineer. I do mostly materials-related work for energy storage, catalytic applications, things of that nature. Really looking at materials at the nanoscale to build in functionality at a much larger scale. So
anyway, sorry I interrupted you.
You can tell I really enjoy talking about that. So she's an entrepreneur, has been very successful in her ventures. I have two daughters. My youngest daughter is an artist. She just graduated from Parsons in New York, and just an extraordinary artist. Anything you can think of. And we saw that in her when she was really young, doodling on just about everything. And I think she gets that talent from her mother, who was also an artist. But she's also analytical. She thinks very analytically, and
best of both worlds, right?
The best of both worlds. And then my oldest daughter, I would say best of both worlds as well. She is a professor at Columbia in sociology. Okay. And interesting story, she started out in chemical engineering, graduated summa cum laude at University of Pennsylvania, but really saw herself doing something in social sciences. So she went and got her PhD at Stanford, and as I mentioned, is now a professor at Columbia looking at effects of inequality, and just tremendously proud of both of them.
Sure.
Really have on a tremendous start.
What's your favorite food?
I don't know that I have one favorite. I love spaghetti. I love pizza. I love steak. Love lobster. So those would be my top four.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice. Well, I mean, it sounds somewhat simplistic, but be yourself. You'll go home. I spend a lot of time with people, but I spend more time, sounds strange, but more time by myself, and reflecting on how I feel about myself. If I were not being myself, I'd probably not be happy at all. But I can tell you, I'm incredibly happy. I've been fortunate to be placed in situations where I can be myself. The people that I work with often comment that you're not what we thought you would be. I'm not I don't see myself as kind of a traditional administrator, for example. I'm being myself. I'm sometimes funny, sometimes I'm not so funny, corny, sometimes I'm aggressive, but I can guarantee you that when I go home at night, I'm feeling pretty comfortable that I am living in my own skin.
What do you like to do for fun?
The most fun I have is probably with my family. We travel. We just not too long ago took a trip to Banff, and I just had a wonderful time. If you're talking about something that's very engaged, that to me is a source of great enjoyment. I also like playing golf. I like playing cards. Playing poker is a lot of fun. Interacting with our friends and family, I really enjoy. Those are the things that I enjoy. I used to play basketball, but my joints will not tolerate much of that anymore.
And how do you feel about hurricanes?
Of course, I'm uncomfortable with them, but it's you deal with it, right? Everywhere you live, there are challenges.
Yep.
We live in Michigan. It's cold. Delaware, it's hot and humid sometimes. Here, the weather, most of the time it's great, but you do have hurricanes and you make the adjustments necessary to deal with it. I take that little bit of downside every day of the week to enjoy the warmth that we see here, the sunny skies. In Michigan, it's overcast a lot. Here, every day is sunny.
I'm a native Midwesterner, so I get it.
Are you? Yeah, it's and it's amazing what effect that has on you psychologically. I don't know if there is literally more bounce in my step, but I just feel a little different. Not that it's going to make a huge difference with regard to how I work, but I think it does have a little bit of an effect.
What haven't we touched on? Anything of importance to you that hasn't come up?
I think I met with 4 of our college advisory board members and kind of sampled what their interests are. Have also connected through our alumni network with a number of alumni who I would say I am proud to say they're leaning in. They're leaning in not only with their financial resources, but providing advice. The easiest thing, in some cases, the easy thing for them to do is just give you a little bit of money, and appease you, you're on your way. If they spend time with you and really tell you what they think will help create greater impact, I love that. And for those who are listening, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to connect with you. Our database is pretty extensive, but it's not perfect. There are people that we probably will miss. And so I would encourage anyone that wants to lean into the College of Engineering and its future success, connect with us.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Special thanks to our partners at WUSF Public Media.